Hey everybody, Major Dream Williams here. I am a visionary entrepreneur apparently, but I'm just a guy that has a couple of interesting pieces of background, traveled a couple of places, and am trying to be a bridge between tech and analog. And somebody who also understands where his place is in the world and the fact that this is very, very much a small percentage of the world that's here. And knowing this information, I just want to try to get it out to the people who will probably never hear this information if it's left to them. So just being a bridge. That's
Thank you. That's awesome. So in terms of bridging, what I can gather, and I'm going to say this like, you talk to me back like I'm 5, so I can ask the stupid questions. So if anybody feels stupid out there, you don't have to feel stupid. I'll ask the stupid things for you. How about that? It makes my job so easy. I can be like, what about the hat? No. We talked about that earlier. It's an inside joke. So can you tell me a little bit about how this project is bringing together so many really kind of disparate interdisciplinary spaces, right? It sounds to me like there's a vaccine involved, which is a very touchy subject in these days. And there's a medical intervention in general involved, which seems a little less touchy in terms of vernacular. There's blockchain involved. There are clinical trials involved, and there's an investment opportunity as well as distribution involved. So that's a lot to pack into one big ball of yarn, right? So can you just summarize what you are launching right now at this point?
Yeah, so I think that for us, what we're doing is we're creating the world's first cancer treatment NFT. So what that means is that basically you buy this NFT, and it'll have beautiful artwork associated with it. It'll, like show the insides of your body, the immune system, like cancer response, tumor shrinkage, all those things. We'll stylize it into very beautiful artwork. But the key differentiator between, our NFT and other ones is that for us.
Yep.
Is this better? Oh my God, that's so much better.
Start over.
All right, no worries. So we are developing the first in the world cancer treatment NFT. And what that means is that basically, if you hold this NFT, and it'll have beautiful artwork and all the other usual stuff that you would expect an NFT to have, you'll also be able to, potentially, if the drug is developed and fully commercialized, be able to trade that NFT in for a free cancer treatment. That's the idea. So you're basically getting in at essentially a low price for this NFT, and then, as the cancer drug gets developed, going from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 through to FDA approval at the end of the day, then the value of that NFT should theoretically go up because the price of a cancer drug in the US, at least according to the US normal, healthcare reimbursement-based business models, the cancer drugs tend to be between $250,000 to $500,000 per patient. So what we're trying to do is basically, have people coming in and making a bet with us that we're going to be able to do this, successfully. And I think, for us, we've already gotten a lot of milestones covered behind us to this point. A lot of the, normal risks that you would associate with a biotech, regulatory, manufacturing, like hospitals, doctor networks, clinical trial designs, blah, 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 all those things are all actually behind us. So there's really only one bet that remains, which is to treat cancer patients. And the use of the proceeds from the NFTs is just going directly to doing that, is treating these patients and then reporting that data to the regulatory bodies such as the FDA, the institutional review boards, and then all the different hospitals throughout the places that we're actually doing the trials at.
Wow. So this is the first time I've heard about an NFT being associated with anything that's not art related. Usually I hear about let's disseminate the forms, the beautiful forms we can make, the beautiful imagery, the beautiful sounds, the beautiful things that we make that have not been monetized well. Let's try to monetize them. And let's use NFTs to do that. That's fantastic. That's usually all I hear, right? And having an arts background, I love that. I'm like, great, let's get some money into the arts. This is the first time I've heard about something that's very function-based, that's very applicable, that's already got an economy really that's thriving around it, as exploitative as it may be at $250,000 or $1 million a treatment, but it still is there. So that's a lot of disruption as far as I can tell. And so I have to wonder, how was it that when did the light bulb, do you remember the moment that light bulb went off for you? When you and Major, or you and whoever exposed you to NFTs, when did that happen for you? When you said, let's do NFTs as a way to monetize, bring investment, and raise and distribute this particular intervention in medicine?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I do have to credit Major with helping be one of my inspirations for coming up with this idea.
He's very inspirational.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, straw hat and all, and leopard print tight pants.
He's the only man in the room in leopard print, as far as I can see.
That's right.
You always got to keep it fly, you know.
Yeah, that's right, man. I mean it when I say I'm just trying to keep up with you, bro. That's all I'm trying to do. So to answer the question a little bit more seriously, I think we actually, we've been running Primevax, that's the name of the cancer biotech, for the last 7 years. And we took it from idea stage through to human clinical trial stage, and we treated 12 patients. And so I actually always wanted to have some sort of a blockchain angle for this company, and I wanted that even as early as 2017. But I could never find what the right angle was. So during that time, we just kind of kept our heads down and built the company instead. So what that means is, going through, some more preclinical experiments, doing some more of the manufacturing scale-up processes, showing the tumor killing, and then, of course, filing the monstrous FDA, IND application, which is 1,500 pages long. It took about a year for us to get the whole thing opened.
That makes a Regulation A+ application with the SEC look like kindergarten, honestly.
It was an absolute nightmare. I would not wish filing an IND on my worst enemies, honestly. And but we got it done, and it's already produced data, thankfully. And now I think really the light bulb that went off moment was really when I was catching up with Major around the idea of art mob, and how it doesn't have to just be art. Yes, there is art, and there's a lot of other dope ass stuff that you can definitely do. Using art with NFTs, but there's got to be other practical cases. And I said, the light bulb moment was, well, what would be the most possible impactful utility use case for an NFT? And I was like, saving a human life probably is going to be the most extreme version of that. So I was like, well, I know that drugs are crazy expensive. I know that we can get the NFT in at a much lower price than the crazy expensive drugs. And it's basically just a means of, taking, it's like a risk-considered hedged bet, essentially, right? You get in now while right before we're about to treat cancer patients, myself and, my co-founder and all of my science team, we're all going to buy an NFT each. So I want to be in the same boat financially with everybody who's in it with us. I don't want this to be, a failure of a project. Obviously, I want it to be massively successful for everybody.
It will be.
Yeah, and it's up to us to be diligent with the science, right? But I think that the idea for this was, this is actually something fundamentally new. If the outcome is, that really, really meaningful clinical outcome, right, of, being able to treat those patients, then this is just the financial mechanism by which we can enable that to happen, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. And it sounds like your knowledge of NFTs really came from Major, which I have to ask you, when did the light for you turn on? I mean, you've been in so many verticals. You've had multiple businesses that were very successful. You've gotten involved in NFTs now. I heard minting the culture more times than I've ever thought I would out of your mouth. But then something that was not minting the culture came out, and you were like, check this out. I was like, huh? Took me a couple of minutes. Took me a few. It had pinged me more than once. I was like, huh? So first of all, my real question is, when did the light bulb turn on for you that NFTs or blockchain, NFTs really were the direction you wanted to go? And then for you, it sounds like you were the one that laced this together to let him know how this would maybe take shape in the medical space. Tell me about those moments.
Wow. Well, definitely, the NFT space is really intriguing, really, really exciting. It's one of the things where I felt finally there's something in the world that caught up to the way that I think.
When did that happen for you?
2018, NFTs were brought to me the first time, and I didn't get it fully, but when I really it really hit home was probably about 9, 10 months ago. You know, and I saw the ability, and the reason why I say mint culture is because I've always looked at it as utility. You know, I didn't look at it as art. I look at it as a Jamaican that gets a chance to see his culture somewhere else and watch the culture be able to be monetized, and it be monetized really off of just inefficiency. So as an NFT being able to say mint culture and tether to certain things that are far away based off of smart contract, this was the first time you could actually say, hey, there's something that I did here on this little island that is somewhere all the way over there, and look at all these little, these little blockchains, these little verifiers that bring it all the way back, and now we can actually, get paid because of that. So for me, crypto wasn't even it, because I got to figure out what am I going to tell poor people and people in the hood that aren't necessarily in these rooms. And when it came to your IP, your intellectual property, which is all, the way we're using this is just intellectual property that started to be more creative and say, yo, forget all of this art, even though not forget all this art, but when you get to a point where people are just making tons of dumb stuff, you need to kind of find the cool stuff that really pops out. And that's what Art Mob is really all about, really finding something that's different, but it's really game-changing. And he has that.
You say game-changing, and I noticed that in terms of Art Mob, you're saying that the real piece here, the real IP is the blockchain piece, is the technology around the vaccine, around this particular treatment, right? This treatment is the real thing that you're buying a piece of. But we're also going to add it, in this instance, the art takes a backseat to that. The art just sort of decorates the NFT, rather than the art is the core value of the NFT. But now it's a kind of combination of the two. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think that, as far as the company is concerned, as Primevax, right? Like, you are buying a beautiful piece of artwork with, generally like an express understanding, between us that, like this may potentially lead to a life-changing treatment, right? And so I think that as far as, like the financial management aspect of it is concerned, when the token actually gets redeemed at a later time, if the drug is successfully developed and assuming all the contract terms are all solid, and of course we will make sure that they are solid, then when that happens, then it's just a back-end financial management exercise. And that's something that, like every biotech company, every regular tech company is able to do. That aspect of it has been done for quite a long time. So, I mean, the solution is like surprisingly elegant for something that is as like, I think like game-changing as bridging blockchain technology with biotechnology for the first time, right? Like, once the logic is explained to you, it's kind of like a no-brainer. So I do believe that, like if we're successful with this, and we all fully intend to make this successful, I do expect that many more people or many other companies will be following in our footsteps and, acting kind of like copycats, right? And we absolutely want to encourage that. I think that that's the right call. And I'd love to, help other companies do this after we've already been doing it successfully as well.
100%. I mean, and just to piggyback on that, what we're really talking about is different ways to fundraise. We're talking about fundraising every business has a bunch of different verticals, and every vertical is a community in itself. And each can have its own group. So when you come with a project and you have a community that wants to be connected and say, hey, this is my idea, this is the roadmap, this is how much to buy a ticket to get in, this is what I'm promising you throughout, do you want to get down with me? No time before were we able to create all of these types of businesses that allow people to look under the hood at any given time. What this is a trustless society. I don't need to know you. I don't need to like you. I don't need to anything. I just need to do what I say I'm going to do. So this is, at the end of the day, an exercise in integrity, which is always what we're here about.
Well, speaking of integrity, I got to ask, what are some of the safeguards that you've put in place? Like if I buy your NFT, what do you have in place that makes, that stabilizes, that like secures my investment? Do you, and along that with that, I think there's kind of pairing with that question, either one of you wants to answer this, who are you working with externally? Who are your partnerships? Who's also, that really just means who else's relationships and reputation is on the line with you, and how are you building that ecosystem already?
Yeah, I can answer this one. I'll certainly start, and then Major, please feel free to support and add in anything you'd like. So it's a collective, right? It's like we all succeed together or we all fail together. Now, I think for us, the key thing from my perspective is that like Primevax is at like the perfect milestone opportunity, and the NFT market, just as an industry, is also at the perfect like prime level of like exposure. At this point, everything actually should be bridged together. So what do I mean by that? I mean that, like if you think about it, you always have to ask, with any consideration of any payment for anything, like what's the risk associated with buying this, right? And so for us, we've taken every risk off the table except the cancer patient treatment risk. And that's the bet you're making alongside us, right? I think it would be silly for us to pretend that, oh, we're going to definitely crush this clinical trial. It's going to absolutely dominate. We're going to get FDA approval. I don't like to be a snake oil salesman. I like to be very, very practical and metered with what I say. And, the practical reality is that human biology is human biology, right? You can't control a lot of the stuff that's going on in the body. You can try your best to influence it. That's what we're trying to do with the technology. But that said, to your point, though, Monica, about like what types of, like what folks are we working with to help give us assurance that we know what the hell we're doing, and as well as the other question of what type of social capital have we actually like tapped into to make this work? I mean, obviously the FDA has already fully signed off on the clinical trial, so that went through 4 different departments of review across 20 different reviewers, right? Hospitals such as, Mount Sinai, University of Chicago, and a couple of these other guys, we're very close to signing the contracts with them to begin treating the cancer patients. We're speaking with a couple of hospitals in Australia as well. And then, like on the manufacturing side, we have partnered with the U.S. Army. And the U.S. Army has a worldwide exclusive license with us, so that we can use their dengue virus that they've already manufactured to human clinical grade status, it's called GMP status, or grade, to be able to actually inject into these people.
Wait, now you're getting into the specifics
That's
of
right.
the actual medical
That's
intervention,
right.
which is what I'm dying to hear about.
Yeah.
What is this dengue virus? How does this thing work? Yeah, right?
Yeah,
I know.
Because
That's
up until
crazy.
this point,
Yeah.
when
It's
I
just
hear
like
dengue, all I just hear literally, up until this point, when I hear dengue, all you think about is the dengue fever, right? Now, you got people like this that are flipping it on its ear and doing dope stuff. And this is what we're talking about. Like, when you have people who get to see things a little differently, and you go through traditional methods, and it's just so bureaucratic and so locked down. Things like blockchain, things like DeFi, things like NFTs allow you to raise, to go down a different route. He's not going down traditional routes. He's just adding another creative route on top of it.
And hopefully that will make things a lot more expeditious for you. So how the hell are you taking something like a virus that I would not want to catch and turning it into something better? Of course, that's like the fundamental of a vaccine technology, but like this is really incredible as it relates to cancer.
Yeah, so absolutely. So this asset that we identified is something that the U.S. Army developed actually 20 years ago. And they've been injecting people with this dengue strain as a means of trying to develop an anti-dengue vaccine. So that, if you get this vaccine, then you go into, like the jungle, and then, you get bitten by a mosquito carrying dengue, you will not actually get sick with dengue fever, right? They mostly developed it for, like, soldiers, like people who they would deploy to those places and make sure that when they get there, they're a little bit more immune protected, right? That's the principle behind how they did that. And so what we observed and why we selected this specific strain of dengue to treat our cancer patients is that the immune profile that gets induced when that particular strain of dengue gets injected into the body is actually very, very beautiful. And it's exactly the right immune profile that we would want to see out of an anti-cancer treatment. I can certainly talk about the cytokines, the blood proteins, the T cells, the NK cells, et cetera, but I'll save that for later, or you can talk to me after.
In the end, is it like you're looking for something that has like a parabolic kind of shape versus a wide oval shape? Is it just like generally you're looking for a general profile that makes sense? I'm just trying to dumb this down. Talk to me like I'm 5.
Yeah. No worries.
It resembles something that you would like, but it's just a little bit different?
Yeah, that's right. So basically, your immune system has 2 polarities. You have an innate immune system and an adaptive immune system. Dengue hits both. And usually, a lot of other drugs, they only hit one of the 2. And they only hit select cytokines, which is a blood protein, that's what the word cytokine means, of the 2, somewhere in the middle, right? A select number of these cytokines. There's, like hundreds of cytokines. But for dengue, what we observed was that there was like over a dozen to 15 to 20, depending on how you count them, cytokines that were highly activated during the dengue infection. And that immune profile just happens to have like an 80 to 90% correlation with, like anti-cancer response immune profiles. So in other words, in patients for whom their tumors are actually shrinking and medicine is working, dengue already looks like that. But it looks like more than just any one of those other cancer treatments. So for us, as far as we can see, like no one's done this yet, and yet, like it's actually a little bit more elegant of like an administration to give to people, and also practically, like the reality, the harsh reality is that a lot of cancer drugs right now are crazy toxic. Like they're all very, very unsafe. Chemotherapies, multiple types of immunotherapies, CAR Ts, et cetera, all those different ones. Dengue is actually like pretty tolerable in the context of other anti-cancer treatments. And that's something that our doctors have actually gone on record saying, is that this thing's honestly better from a safety perspective than a bunch of these other ones, and it seems to be doing more than these other ones, so this definitely needs to be treated in cancer patients. That's kind of the principle behind the matter.
That is incredible. So I had a very close friend who I knew when I was 16. We turned 16 at the same time, and we were in high school together. And I started writing in a journal because I was dealing with a lot in my teenage turmoil life, and she was diagnosed with childhood leukemia, juvenile leukemia at 16. And she fought it off at 16, and I said, if you get better and your T cells are high enough, I'm going to take you to prom. And she got better a week in advance, and I took her to prom. And I went in tux tails, and she went in a dress, and she was my date, and she had just gotten her hair grown back, and I had long hair, and it was crazy, and it was wonderful. And then a year later, it came back. And she had to go get a bone marrow transplant at 18. And I went to Seattle where she got her bone marrow transplant when she was like recovering, and I saw her, and I met her, and it was great, and she was all swollen from like steroids and treatments, but then she recovered. And she wasn't supposed to. It was this really like weird thing that she had a 30% chance of recovery, and she did.
Amazing.
And then when I was 23, she called me up and she's like, you won't fucking believe this. It's back. They took out my stem cells and it's back. And I'm like, how did this happen? She's like, one cell remains somewhere. I think that cancer might just be a chronic thing for me. And her parents had to refinance their home. And they had a fundraiser. And I interviewed her for her fundraiser so she could talk about her compelling case. Where she's been fighting since she was 16, and now she's 23, and she needs this weird thing called a donor lymphocyte infusion, a special thing that goes into her lymph nodes that helps her lymph nodes fight this thing to hopefully really get rid of it. And it was experimental, and it was amazing. And she was one of 11 patients that year that was given this. And it worked. And she survived that. And then at 27, she had it show up in her uterus again, and she had a hysterectomy. And then at 35, it showed up in her breast, and she had one of her breasts removed. And then at 39, she died. And she was like, I just realized at this point, cancer is just a chronic part of my life. It's going to eventually come for me. I don't know why me, but here it is. But what I saw along the way was not only how many treatments she sought after and how much on the cusp she went, because if you survive that many times, there are no longer statistics to tell you your likelihood of survival because you just beat all of them, right? You are the statistical anomaly. And yet, you still have to afford it in America. Thanks, American Dream. So the kind of, in the end, by her 30s, she took a job, even though she had an advanced degree in art history. She took a job as as a barista at Starbucks because she could work there only 30 hours a week and not her whole life away, and she could still get health insurance because she couldn't get health insurance otherwise because she had so many pre-existing conditions. And all kinds of things started compiling in to be like, wow, the economy around medicine and medicine as a thing it was a zero-sum game if you actually beat the odds medically. So I say all of that story, not only to make everybody want to listen, but also to kind of go back into what it takes economically to be able to afford to have cancer. And also, I mean, I have to wonder, because I knew her story so deeply, and I knew all of the stages and all the different hospitals and the different doctors and the different interventions, and not once could she show up and be like, I have a voucher that I bought on the internet for this special treatment. I want to cash it in and have the doctor do it. And I don't know this situation specifically, but I mean, when I think about how in bed the medical industry is, I say medical industry, not profession, for a reason, that they're in bed with big pharma. So if a doctor was going to give and administer an intervention, isn't it also because they're getting paid by by the big pharma that said, sell them ours? But if they already pre-bought it, how would they get administered it? You know what I mean? Like, you're disrupting a lot of systems that I don't know the regulations around them or the systems around them, but I have only seen the sad parts of it. So how can you make that a more optimistic conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tough question. And, the U.S. healthcare system, I think many people would agree is, broken, very inefficient. We pay more than double the next, best country, and we get less health outcomes, as a percentage of GDP, right? I think we all have to acknowledge that. And I say that as somebody who had to, do a lot of health economic modeling, cost effectiveness, budget impact modeling back in my previous life. For cancer drugs and things like that. I think that I would say this, as a biotech company or as a provider of the medicine, our industry already actually has a program by which underserved or underprivileged individual patients can actually get benefit, and that's called a patient assistance program, a PAP. And so every pharma company operates a PAP. I think that they're not well marketed. I think that, to be very honest, they get very little budget for advertisements because, profit motive.
There's no
blah, blah,
money
blah.
in that.
Yes, it's not a profit center, so why would the pharma company do it, et cetera? But they do exist, right? And so that, for us as a biotech, this financial instrument would just be one of the components of our PAP, if that makes sense. Because at the end of the day, it's just moving money around. And blockchain already does that. And, big pharma, God knows, and I know this practically because, everybody knows that pharma makes a lot of money and spends a lot of money on a whole bunch of different, line items, right? That's actually called gross to net, the difference between your gross sales and net sales. And there's an entire cottage industry on just this topic, right? So as far as I'm concerned, I think in the long run vision for, the financial implications of a treatment like this, we plug it into a gross to net model, we plug it into a PAP, and we stand by the patients at the end of the day. At least that's what I think. I don't think I'm able to actually command other biotech companies and other pharma companies on what they should be doing with their policies, but at least there's enough control here that we can, do right by the patients. Right?
So you're saying these NFTs, if cashed in, quote unquote, or sold to someone who needs them, were to be brought back for redemption, that would fall into a well-known kind of section in the P&L of your company called the PAP.
That's right, exactly. I mean, it would basically just be a new financial instrument that's built into the PAP that, then there would be an online web portal or a toll-free number that you would call, et cetera, and then you would go through the vouching process, and then, the financial back end would just, trigger because of that, right? That's kind of the principle.
Hey guys, I know it's a lot of information, and all of us aren't necessarily as smart as this guy, but it's pretty important, and at the end of the day, all of this that he's talking about, we don't know if it's going to work. We don't know. We're sitting out here talking to you as the community because we want you guys to support us with it. So if you don't hear what we're talking about, you won't know what to support. You know?
Well said. He's moderating now. I'm going to just give it to him.
Major, bring in the sass. I love it.
No, right, well, no.
Well,
That's what comes
might as well.
with it.
Hold
I
on.
mean,
I got
it's the
this.
leopard
I got
print.
this. I got
It's the
this.
leopard
I got
print.
this. So the whole thing about Art Mob and why I think these things make sense is because I find projects like this, so that way we can talk about these things and know about how we can really disrupt. So I'm doing a current project with Brock Pierce and James Heckman. We're launching a platform called Roundtable. Roundtable is leveraging a lot of the tech that they've already had going on their big platform. So they got 135 million subscribers that will be looking at us because what we're talking about is decentralized truth, talking about the things that disrupt big pharma, who are not, because we're not buying ads. So we can't just talk about other cancer and, drugs. But the idea is that we have so much opportunity because this concentration of world beaters that we have running around here, it's at least for 6 months of the year, we're all here in Puerto Rico. So it gives us a chance to say that we're a part of something. And if we're going to be down with this, that means we're in this for 10, 20 years. So if we're starting with something now and it happens to be something that's we're gonna kick big pharma in certain places, but with good intention. But when you find projects like this that are really, willing to put themselves out there and lead the way, you run after it. So if I have 135 million people to talk to about, what you're doing and how dengue can possibly, help cancers, people who have gone through 1, 2, 3 different treatments. It's not like you're taking somebody first time. You're taking it to people who have gone through once or twice. Talk about that.
That's right, absolutely. And, I do want to make sure we caveat one piece. I think from our perspective as a biotech, the nature of the work that we do has to be collaborative, and that includes working with the pharma industry, right? I don't think that, we would have gotten here without a bunch of the amazing scientists who we've talked to at conferences, folks at Genentech, at, like Amgen, BMS, Merck, et cetera, right? They're our colleagues, and they're the same guys who run other clinical trials for other biotech companies. The name of the game is to play the same game that everybody else plays and wrap up something new and innovative, bring that to the table, but generally still remain true to the main thing that everybody else does, right? But to answer your point, though, Major, about the technology and what we intend to treat, we are going after patients who have already failed prior therapies. We're looking for patients who've basically received, the best-in-class drugs for 2 to 4 months, whatever that duration of time is, and their tumors are still growing in spite of treatment. And the goal in giving them the dengue is to reverse that, right? Is to make the growing tumor start to be stabilized and then start to shrink. I don't think, it would be very, very lofty for us to say, oh, we're going to revolutionize everything. We're going to turn pharma on its head. They won't see us coming. No, I think the practical reality is something even simpler. It's just, look, contribute to the fight, We know that there is always a % of patients who are not responders, right? They don't respond to treatment. They're usually patients who have cold tumors, as an example.
That was my next question, and
Yep.
kind of one of my wrap-up questions is, what types of cancer are you talking about? And what is this, what is the journey of that patient and how they would end up encountering you guys and hopefully finding greater outcomes?
That's right. Yeah, so during our clinical trial processes, which is what we're kicking off, in the coming X number of months, we're going after patients who have already received prior treatment, right? So non-responder there, receive our dengue, and then based on the resensitization that we're able to produce for those patients, then potentially put them back on to the previous therapy that they previously failed. Because if I'm able to just convert those non-responders back into responders, guess what? That's massive clinical value in and of itself, right? And so the goal is to, again, plug ourselves in to what the pharma companies and the medical systems and actually the NCC and cancer treatment guidelines, what they are already doing, right? Again, all we're doing is coming up with something innovative to help the financial portion and have everybody share in the journey. But everything else that we do is 100% transparent, 100% working with the industry, 100% working with regulators, et cetera, et cetera. And you can't change too many weird things. At least that's my view.
So given that you can't change too many things, but not every single Crypto Monday has such a specific call to action or a specific way to plug in, other than like, here, share it, there's going to be a replay, all that stuff. You are launching an NFT here tonight. So there is a way to participate that is actually going on. And I would like to hand the mic back over to you, and I would like you all to talk about how people can actually get involved if they want to.
Well, yeah, definitely. So tonight, and it's already launched. It's a founders table, as I call it. So it's a founders token, and it was inspired by a good friend of mine. I call him a genius, my buddy Alex here. I was playing around, and I was thinking about creating a token and coins, and I'm like, you know what, it just doesn't feel right. I want to try to do something that's more community driven and allow people to feel like they're going on with the ride. I like the ideas of DAOs. I like the ideas of people being able to have governance and vote, and something that allows everybody to even mentor to get across the finish line. So I said, okay, cool. Let me create 1,000 NFTs. Put it fairly priced, it's 0.09 ETH, and so that's about $300, and allow people to buy. Because at the end of the day, if I'm supposed to create NFT content for these guys, Brock and James and these guys, we have to create quality content, and that definitely costs money because we need filming, we need editors and whatnot. But if it's something that allows me to then be able to say, let me highlight people in my community, let me highlight some of the projects that you guys are on and what you guys are about, I feel that this is something that we get to grow off of, because what we have right here, it's priceless. And I want you to know that I know that about you guys. So if you guys are down with the art mob, I'll definitely be looking to lean on, your counsel and see if we can do things together as a community.
Just to build on what Major is saying there. So there's 2 calls to action. 1, buy Major's token.
Oh, yeah. The
Art Mob token. That's the first one.
It gives you access to all his stuff.
That's right. Second, sign up for the notification list for the Primevax NFT. It'll drop in the coming couple of months.
And there is a QR code that you can use to buy Major's token. Find Major, he'll help you. That's all.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
we have a QR code, and yes, we have a link to the Primevax information form.
Yeah.
Because as this thing grows over these next couple of weeks, you guys will get to see what we're doing, and maybe you guys get to suggest what we could do better.
Yep, that's right. So first, just sign up. Primevax NFT is the Twitter handle, and Primevax NFT, all one word, right? Obviously, Twitter handle. And then the first tweet on there is actually going to be pinned, and it's just the form. And you just tap into that form and you just sign up. And then that's the best way for us to stay in contact with you guys as we get this thing rolled out in the coming couple of months.
Question.
You already answered it.
How do we get it? Okay, cool.
So can you
find the guy in the
WhatsApp and stuff?
Find the guy in the leopard pants and scan his QR code, and then you can get directly to it. And I can just drop it in the WhatsApp group, and then everybody can have it.
Perfect. There's some other questions out there.
You see what happens already. That the community is helping me. Question in the back.
Yes.
NFT the movie.
Mike.
I got this kind of 3 questions. Hopefully they're short answers. Hopefully everybody else is interested in this. The first, they're all for Tony, really, honestly. One is about the therapy itself. To Monica's story, does this treatment have like long-lasting effects? I mean, once the patient starts responding with the immune system, is this something that would hopefully sort of prevent the situation that Monica described, where recurring people keep going into remission or whatever? That's the first question. Second question is, Major mentioned DAOs. I'm wondering if there would be any DAO rights associated with your token, because I think that would be kind of interesting as far as how that gets managed down the line. And the third is a little extension of that, like how much of the business model is actually going to be encoded in the smart contract of the NFT to sort of ensure that people, down the line will actually get the value that they're anticipating out of your token.
Yeah, I think those are all good questions. First question, the recurrence of the cancer part. I would say that, honestly, the practical biology and the common medical answer that you have to give in these situations is that we just don't know. But that said, a lot of the data that we've seen suggests that there is a systemic component, meaning a systemic whole body component that gets activated during the dengue administration. And we know that, like tumors tend to travel metastatically throughout the body. So the theory goes is that we should be able to treat some distant tumors and hopefully eliminate some of the ones that are hiding in other parts of the body as well. Second question, the DAO component. I would say that, I think that we're still playing around with the logic of the DAO. The practical reality is that unlike a lot of other industries, the pharmaceutical industry and the biotech industry is already very well established from a clinical decision-making perspective. And it usually is driven by, hard data, response rates, safety profiles, statistical significance, things like that, right? We certainly would welcome the idea on principle of a DAO, but we need to make sure that the folks voting on the DAO are actually understanding of what the implications of those data sets are. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of Joe Schmoes who don't know our space trying to tell us what to do. That is not going to fly. Certainly not. I'm not saying that in a negative way for us as a biotech, but I don't think that's going to fly with the context of the rest of the industry, right?
I honestly didn't mean around your business, because obviously you know that way better, but in terms of how those tokens get managed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those types of components, absolutely, yes. And then Jeff, to your last question as well, I think that for us to be very, very clear, right, as a percentage of overall money raised for this project, for the overall Primevax initiative, this entire biotech project, right, these NFTs are a minority. So you don't really have much to worry about from like will we run off with your money and mismanage the token component of it practically? Because if that's like this company has already existed and we put our blood, sweat, and tears into it for the last 7 years. We intend for it to be many more years after that. The company cannot just evaporate and run away with your money, right? There's a lot more other stakeholders who are going to be really mad at me if I don't deliver on the goods. Right, especially if they're already baked into the financial projections. And, like the associated liability calculations and everything else, as you would expect, that will be associated with, the financial component of this token. Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, there's so many questions.
Oh, shit.
How many total tokens? Is it going to be like continuing issuing the supply? And what is the estimated cost of the token when they become released?
I will answer that as a preliminary answer. We don't know 100% yet, but here's the direction of where we're thinking. We'll probably mint ballpark 1,000 tokens to begin. Depending on, like customer demand, we might mint another 5,000 to 10,000. Each token is going to cost around $10,000, so like 2 to 4 ETH, depending on the price of ETH. And it's supposed to be priced at around the general price of what you would expect to pay for like a premium NFT out there, right? But with a much more massive clinical utility case component built into it.
Then I think I misunderstood something. I just want to clarify. You said each token will cost around 2 to 10,000 or whatever.
2 to 4 ETH, which is around $10,000, give or take.
Right, but I just heard Major say that one of these tokens was going to be actually 0.3 ETH, right?
0.09.
Two different things.
So Major's...
So hold on. So what we're talking about today is the Art Mob token. What we're talking about Primevax That's not created yet.
These are two different tokens, right? The art mob is the community component. The Primevax is the treatment, token component.
Okay, so one question that I personally have, and I imagine some people in the audience may have as well, is when and how do I get the Primevax token specifically?
Sign up for the mailing list,
And then you'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's right. As
Yeah.
we get the product built out, as we get the artwork,
We
beautifully
still need
painted
to
and
put
everything else.
artists together. We still need to design NFTs.
That's
We
right.
still need to do the drops. What we're doing today, right now, is these priority meetings where you get to hear what's coming down the pipe.
That's
and
right.
then, as we move further, then we'll do our AMAs, we'll answer questions, and we will get everybody on board.
Yeah, the Primevax NFTs should be done by end of year. That's our current intent at this point.
Molly.
That's right. Yeah, I think Molly brings up a really good question, and I think the practical answer is that there is a logistical component and a financial component, right? The logistical component is being able to actually work within the context of, the healthcare system, right? And it's actually not just going to be the specialty pharmacies, like the PBMs or any of those other ones in the U.S. It's going to also be the ones that are outside the U.S. too. In Europe, like in Japan, et cetera, they're going to have a different fundamental, financial infrastructure for, healthcare management, right? So our goal is, of course, to work within the context of those logistics to make that happen, right? And then the second piece of it is just financial management. It's just, making sure that, when basically what we want to avoid is a scenario where the patient gets this big bill from, like a pharmacy or from a hospital when they did not have insurance, and then, the drug itself costed them, they get billed like $300,000 or whatever, and they can't pay it. In that case, if that happens, or, ideally we forestall it before then, but if that happens, they would file it with our website, and then from there, the financial pieces on our back end kick in to help take care of them. That's the answer.
Hello?
No,
yep,
there's
yep.
no precedence. That's why we're doing this.
Sam.
First of all, thank you three and loads of people in this room for being such an amazing community since I got here. Quick question. One of the issues I can see with that is the pharmaceutical companies strong-arming you down the line. Have you come up with ideas of maybe putting something in the smart contract to deal with that?
Yeah, that's actually, we don't even need a smart contract for that, to be very honest. All we really need is a liability projection. It's just part of your balance sheet. Like you have all your three statements, of which one line item is, hey, look, as part of the company's financing to get to this point, here's some money that's associated that should be paid out at the end of the day, right? It's that simple. So, and any pharmaceutical company, like the typical business model for a biotech is to collaborate with a pharma or to get acquired by a pharma or to go IPO, right? And in any of those three practical scenarios, the financial waterfall behind that is already baked into your three statements. So I don't see that as anything more than just a financial reporting exercise issue.
My man down here.
Can you repeat that?
Okay. So in a similar to way how if you were to issue stock to raise funds, you're using the NFT as more of a tool. So basically a person's buying like the blockchain equivalent, this tokenized form, maybe an art piece or a cool scientific image. But a similar type of thing, it's just this is a tool, you've got it laid out in your financial projections and your balance sheet and everything. It's a mechanism for you guys to raise funds. Because this is a private initiative, right?
That's right. We are not a
Okay.
publicly traded company.
Okay.
Is there a follow-up question to that, or that's it?
No, it's good.
Yeah, you got it right.
Awesome.
Just a,
Yeah,
showing
I'm
you
just making sure I
different
got you
way.
guys straight. The NFT thing, it's like, especially in a scientific context, it's, you want to wrap your mind around what is this value that you're getting a part of in this project.
That's right.
Yeah.
In a way, if you think about it, when you're buying anything, you're thinking about not only what does it cost now, and if I'm going to be able to use it myself, right? In this sense, it's almost like, if you were to say this metaphorically, it's a kickstarter for a vaccine, right? For a cancer intervention.
More or
in a way.
less,
It's
yeah.
a pre-sale on a
But-
thing that might come
Yeah.
to market, right?
But unlike a Kickstarter, you are buying something that you can still sell to someone else.
Exactly.
For increasing financial value.
And that's the other piece of it. So it's not like every single person in here that might buy this particular NFT is planning on getting cancer and needing a treatment, right? And there's like,
That's
I'll
right.
buy it on discount now because I'm going to be 65 later. Like,
No, that's not- yeah,
That's
exactly.
not what we're
That's
doing,
not the intent.
right? It's that
No.
you could potentially sell that on the open market. So actually, in the end, if these treatments continue to be the price that they normally are for the average consumer, you will simply become yet another benefactor of that price increase. And that is also what somewhat secures your investment.
That's
right.
right.
That's right.
The pharmaceutical prices, and I say this as someone who has launched drugs on behalf of pharma companies, we see the trend year after year after year going up and up and up, right? I remember 7-8 years ago, like the average price of a cancer treatment was around $250K. A year or two after I got into building Primevax, it was in the 300s. And then in the last 2 or 3 years, like some of the new CAR T therapies, the wholesale acquisition cost is like over $500,000 over the course of the patient, over the course of the patient's journey, right? So, baked into this is the express understanding that we don't know what our drug price is going to cost later on, right? And so therefore, whatever that price is, you will get that as part of the NFT logic, if that makes sense.
I think we've gotten to the bottom of this, and I'm so glad that we had some really astute questions from the audience. And I think this is the end of the questions. I'm looking around, no more hands, so I just want to thank you both. And if you have any other closing remarks, it sounds like this has been an amazing way to launch some really cool stuff that you guys are involved in. So
Yeah, man.
thank you.
Yeah. I think this is the first of more to come, and the more and more we think about this, the more excited I get. So I'm super happy to know this guy.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. It's been a real pleasure to talk with you, and this is a very exciting, hopefully very, very useful NFT application. So.
We hope so. I mean, that's the goal, right? We want to deliver value to the people who have this, and we want to deliver value to the patients. So this is a thing that just marries those two together. So thank you guys so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks, guys.